The Seahawks falling to the Cardinals on Sunday in a 23-13 contest. And honestly, it didn't feel as close as the scoreboard indicated when the final zero ticked off. The Cardinals came into town without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins, and it did not matter. From the outset, they controlled this game. They were the more physical team. They were the team that wanted it more. I mean, the Seahawks were coming into this game tie 3-6. They were 3 games under 500. Absolutely had to have this game. And yet the Cardinals, with a backup quarterback in Colt McCoy, they were the team that played with the urgency of being 3 games under 500 and the aggression. They played with the hunger that the Seahawks simply did not from the outset. I don't know if the Seahawks thought the Cardinals were just going to roll over because they had a bye coming up, but the Seahawks played like the team that was coasting going into a bye, and they paid for it. Now, 4 games under 500, mostly because this offense just can't get the job done. Pete Carroll storming out of his press conference, and the frustrations really have boiled over. The same issues week in, week out keep cropping up, and Carroll and company, they don't seem to have the answers at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating for everyone who's involved, especially when there was so much hope going into the second half. They got that win against the Jaguars in the first half. They go into the bye week. They're getting Russell Wilson back, and now Wilson's come back. He obviously doesn't look 100%. The offense is in shambles, and they've only scored 1 touchdown since he's returned, and that's been a huge problem with this. And there's really no light seemingly at the end of the tunnel. There's no answers that Pete Carroll has. I mean, he looks lost. I mean, you see it in his press conference. He is completely lost for answers. He has no idea how to fix this. And frankly, I don't think there is a way to fix this. I think this team is completely dysfunctional. I think it's a bad football team, straight up, and I don't know how they could possibly recover from this, because you had to win this game. Even though that the Cardinals are a very talented team, 8-2, all that stuff, they're missing Kyler Murray, they're missing DeAndre Hopkins, they're missing Justin Pugh, and their run defense has been a huge problem for them, and they only ran it 19 times. Obviously, some of that is because of the game flow and all that, but it's just they didn't take advantage of the opportunity that was at hand, and that's becoming kind of a theme for them all year.
On offense, the Seahawks continue to be atrocious on third down. They entered this game ranked 30th in third down conversion rate, went 2 for 10 in this game. Russell Wilson was 0 for 5 passing on third down. He has now completed 35% of his passes on third down this season. That includes the games before he got injured. So don't think this is just because he had finger surgery. He was struggling to complete passes on third down before he went down, and that has been a huge problem. He's been such a great player throughout his career in critical situations. Third down's always been kind of an issue for him, but nothing like this. He has been the worst passer on third down in the NFL by a pretty large margin. His completion percentage, the lack of touchdowns. There's been a few explosives on third downs that have helped his yards per attempt, but I mean, otherwise, he has been atrocious on third down. They can't move the football. Their first and second down, they're one of the most efficient teams in the league based on EPA, but third down, they're at the very bottom, and they just have not been able to sustain drives. So again, Pete Carroll, I kind of don't blame him for being frustrated, because I don't know what he can say at this point. I mean, They have been trying some things behind the scenes to try to figure out third down, and it just hasn't come together. It hasn't materialized. And Russell Wilson playing the way that he is right now, missing throws, missing open receivers in the end zone. They were not efficient in the red zone. That's something that they were good at early in the season. So now that's just compounding all the other problems they have. They aren't running the ball as much as Carroll wants them to, and they were effective, averaging around 4.5 yards per carry, but they're not getting enough carries, just 18 of them in this game. Then you add in the fact that guys are still getting banged up. Rashad Penny had an 18-yard run to start the game, and then he's hurt again. It's just been that kind of a season. First drive, they have back-to-back sacks, one of them a busted pass protection. Travis Homer doesn't get the edge rusher. Isaiah Simmons comes untouched. It was just a disastrous start, and they weren't able to rebound from that. Finally scored a touchdown in the fourth down. They went 20 drives in a row without scoring a touchdown. And most of those were with Russell Wilson under center. That's just unfathomable to me. And that just tells you how broken this offense is. The pass protection hasn't been great. The receivers struggling to get open. The pass route concepts that Shane Waldron's drawn up. Too many downfield throws. Where's the quick game that was promised? Lack of pre-snap motion. A run offense that's not very diversified. I mean, we could keep naming all those checklists that Shane Waldron was supposed to be crossing off. He has not been able to. And the execution's been really poor. So this offense, it's one of the worst in the NFL. When you have this kind of struggle this long, you can't keep saying this is uncharacteristic. No, this is your offense this year. That's just the way that they've played. So not a lot of hope on that side of the ball, despite the clear and obvious talent the Seahawks have on offense. The inability to sustain drives, 30 less plays than the Cardinals. It really put the defense in the bind. But I think the defense also deserves plenty of blame for this game, because you come out and you allow the Cardinals to go on a 16-play drive, almost 10 minutes with Colt McCoy at quarterback. They converted all of their third down opportunities, also got gifted another free set of downs with a pass interference penalty on Trey Brown against A.J. Green at the 2-yard line. Now it's first and goal. They just did everything they couldn't afford to do against a team that was undermanned, kept letting them extend the drives, and they gave up 3 scoring drives in this game of 10-plus plays. It could have been 4 if not for Matt Prater missing a couple of field goals. Without Prater missing those, this game is a laugher. The Cardinals are going to win this one convincingly. So the Seahawks were really only in the game for that reason. It's disappointing with how well this defense has played that they came out and laid an egg, giving up 23 points to an offense with Colt McCoy, who throws for 328 yards, 35 for 44. I mean, they made him look like Aaron Rodgers out there, the way he was unloading the football quickly, and receivers were creating after the catch. Rondale Moore just making tacklers get twisted up like pretzels out there. And the Seahawks, their second-round receiver, doesn't see the field till the second half, and they don't get the ball to him. I mean, it just showed you the difference between the trajectory of these two organizations on both sides of the ball. It really was not as close as the score even indicated, and that's what's most disappointing.
Yeah, real quick, why activate Eskridge if you're not really going to use him? It doesn't really make any sense to me. If he's not ready, then what's the point?
And where's Colby Parkinson? I mean, these guys that were supposed to be key contributors potentially that bring unique traits to the offense, they're nowhere to be found. To me, that's again an indictment on Pete Carroll and Shane Waldron. You're not trying to get these guys involved. You're just putting them on the field to say, oh, they got snaps. And it's extremely frustrating, especially when you watch a team like the Cardinals that has been able to get their young players out there and contributing. Rondale Moore only averaged like 5 yards per reception, but he still was a major problem for the Seahawks, creating after the catch. There were a number of plays that looked like he was dead to right in the backfield, and he made positive yardage out of. A couple big first down conversions. The Seahawks are getting nothing from some of these young guys that were supposed to be contributors, and I don't blame the players at this point. It's just extremely frustrating. You see that on defense too, and then you put the exclamation point on this game that Trey Brown's now done for the season. One of the few promising young players on this team that's really stepped up. It's just, again, it's that kind of season for the Seahawks.
Yeah, the lack of cornerback help in this game really showed through. Obviously they didn't have DJ Reed entering the game, then Trey Brown gets hurt pretty early on, so you're playing with Sidney Jones, who actually had a pretty good game and probably should have had that interception that was overturned. But bless Austin, under the circumstances, having not played was fine, I guess, just to get by. But overall, just the injuries continue to pile up. The defensive line still unable to get significant pressure, consistent pressure. Obviously, a lot of that is because they were able to get the ball out so quickly. But, they did get 2 sacks on McCoy, but only 15 pressures. That's still a problem. Brian Monet had a good game, at least. And that's really my biggest takeaway from this defensive performance overall. I mean, other than that, it's just, they continue to struggle defending the screen passes and just defending running backs in the passing game in general. James Conner had a couple of pretty key catches in this game as well. And just overall, it's just, it's hard to blame them fully when they have to play, or when they have to be on the field for twice as much time as their offense, and they're not getting any help from their offense. But also a part of that is on them as well. I mean, you talked about all the extended drives that they allowed in this game and how much clock that ate up. I believe the first Cardinals scoring drive ate up almost 10 minutes of game clock.
Mhm.
That's that's a problem. That's a huge problem. This team has to get off the field on third down, and really, third down is the huge part of this on both sides of the ball for this team. And it's just, it goes back to the coaching. It goes back to being able to execute when it really matters, and this team just does not.
No, they don't. They don't execute on offense. They don't execute on defense. They continue to make pivotal mistakes. The Jamal Adams pass interference penalty down at the goal line, I thought
Yeah,
was kind of a tic-tac penalty, but you got to know that refs are going to be looking for that in the end zone when you put your hand on the defender a certain way. And Adams even mentioned that after the game. Well, I did have my hand there. I got it off. Well, it was there long enough, and the officials called it. That's the way defense is played. That's the way calls are made in today's NFL, and it's just disappointing. There were a few bright spots. I thought Gerald Everett was really the brightest
yeah,
spot on offense for the Seahawks, and again, 3 catches for him. He's just not involved in the offense enough. But every time he catches the ball, you're so excited because you know he's going to break at least one tackle. And he played with the grit and the competitive nature that you expect from players on the Seahawks roster that, quite frankly, has been absent a lot of times this year. I don't even know that it's an effort issue. It just felt like they were going through the motions in this game, and maybe they
yeah,
just thought it was in the bag because, oh, no Kyler Murray, no DeAndre Hopkins, we've got this game. And you have that kind of mentality in this league, you are going to lose. You still have to play well between the lines, and quite frankly, the Seahawks didn't play well there. The coaches on the sidelines didn't help them out. The lack of adjustments, which continues to be a chronic problem on offense. Moving forward from here, like you said, I think it's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel, especially with the way that this game ended. Pete Carroll walking out of his press conference, how he did, the clear frustration that's so uncharacteristic for him. This is just uncharted territory. And you look at the schedule, they've got a lot of favorable games coming up that they could win, and they could still potentially push for 500. I don't think that's out of the question from a schedule standpoint, but we just haven't seen anything, especially these last 2 games on offense. There has been nothing that suggests to me that this team is suddenly going to have a light switch go on in Washington on Monday and the offense is suddenly going to start being effective and they're going to move the ball. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but we haven't seen enough consistency for there to really be much hope that they can do that. It feels like at this point it's truly a lost season, and you got to get your young guys out there and try to prepare for 2022. Carroll's not going to admit that. They're going to keep trying to win with their star players and trying to get back in the playoff race because they were in win now mode. But the reality is it's time to start shifting that focus to 2022. You try to win games right now, but you got to get some of these young players out there that you know are going to be competing for roster spots next year. It's uncharted territory, but that's where they're at right now.
yeah. And you also look at the situation just in terms of the playoff picture. I mean, even if they were able to rattle off all these games, the 2 teams that they're chasing right now in the 6th and 7th seeds of the NFC, Saints and the Vikings, both have the head-to-head tiebreaker over them.
Yep.
Then there's also 7 teams ahead of them in the standings from that point forward. They're only ahead of one team right now, record-wise. That's the Lions, who are 0-9-1 right now. They're in a bad spot, and so I just look. Technically, yes, mathematically, they have a chance to make it in. It's just very unlikely. And
It's the
even with
Lloyd Christmas division.
yeah, and even with the favorable schedule for the most part, you still got a game against the Cardinals. You still got a game against the Rams. You still got a game against the 49ers, who are playing better ball as of late. And I mean, there's not even a guarantee that you beat Washington, who plays fairly competitive as well this week. So it's just this team doesn't inspire really any confidence in their ability to win really any of these games. Maybe the Lions game, but I think you could make an argument against them in every single one of these matchups. And at that point, I don't think the focus at all should be on the playoffs.
No, the focus needs to be on, can we avoid a top 5 pick that's going to the New York Jets? I mean, that's where you start. You've got to go 1 week at a time. They've been doing that for a few weeks now. And unfortunately, the whole, hey, it's already the playoffs now, that message has not sunk in. The players have not
Yeah.
responded favorably to it. Like Carroll said yesterday, he's reevaluating how he's approaching this situation, how he's coaching. Maybe they'll find something that clicks, but until they actually do, all they've done is talk. They haven't been able to walk the walk. Until they actually start walking the walk and get on a streak, it's just hard to envision this team crawling out of this hole and making this a respectable season. It just seems like it truly is an end of an era. We'll see how things play out from here on out, but this was a loss they simply could not afford to take if they wanted to try to get back in the playoff race. And things are looking pretty bleak with a 3-7 record.